Wendy, is the live recording commenced? It's started? Okay, thank you. So I have pleasure in opening the council meeting of the 19th of March 2024 at, 1 minute early, 5:59, and welcome all those in attendance. The City of Vincent would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay our respects to elders past and present. I don't have any apologies for tonight. I note that Councillor Wallace is yet to join us. Okay, so we'll just move straight to public question time. Can I get an indication whether there are any members of the public who would like to address the meeting? Excellent. Okay. So if you have not been to a briefing at the city council meeting at the City of Vincent before, we ask that when you come forward that you state your name and the suburb in which you reside, and also the agenda item that you wish to speak to. And we do time to 3 minutes, which will be on the screen. So we ask you to make sure you're conscious of that. The meeting's being live streamed, but if you don't want to appear on the live stream, please let us know at the beginning of your remarks. You're not going to be filmed, but we will hear your voice, and we can stop that if you wish. And a summary of your remarks is going to be included in the minutes, and responses, if required, will be in the agenda of the next council meeting. So on that, who would like to come forward first and speak?
Mayor and councillors, good evening. My name is Ian Merker, 106 Broome Street, Highgate. I've bought it first in 1983, so 40 odd years in the same suburb. I'd like to talk tonight about the usual things I talk about, either safety, road safety, or heritage protection. Tonight it's about road safety, and I'm addressing you about item 10.1. All right, can you hear me now? About 10.1, which is to do with the one-way proposal for Harold Street. Now, as you all know, Harold Street is a black spot area that has to, in my opinion, be addressed. It is also a proposal to change it to one way, which is supported and reinforced by our own transport department. But what I found a little alarming were the survey numbers that came out of the survey which you did some months ago. Now, we all know that with local councils, surveys are so often very, very small number of recipients. And I think in this case, it was only 60 people. And it turned out quite surprising to me that there were 34 against and 21 for. But I'd like you just to look a little bit deeper into those numbers, because a lot of the people who were against it, we believe, are parents from the school who just want to look at literally dumping off their children in the morning and picking them up at night. I'd like you to concentrate a lot more on what the people in the street say, and just generally road safety in Highgate. Let's look at these numbers generally. There are 240 children in the school, 14 staff. There were only 13 people who actually went against it. To my mind, that is simply a vocal minority, simply trying to get their own way. Let's look maybe at the 95% of people who were the silent majority of people. We, of course, don't hear from them. So I'm here tonight, very simply, to support friends of mine in Harold Street who suffer far too much traffic, and have, since they've lived there, they have always considered it to be quite a major safety hazard. Safety hazard because people are using Harold Street as a shortcut from Beaufort up to Vincent. In my mind, rat running by commuters just doesn't fit in with school safety. So before you vote tonight, may I ask that you consider the fact it's a black spot area, it's road traffic, your road traffic recommends it, and also it's just a simple vocal minority that are doing it. 3 minutes and 3 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor Zaman, CEO David McLennan, councillors. Leslie Flory, 79 Sass Ave, Mount Hawthorn. I have an asset of City of Vincent being a large 900mm stormwater pipe running through my property, which the City of Vincent say they have no record of. I have 3 points to raise in regards to the City of Vincent procedure in regards to a formal hearing. City of Vincent lack of transparency and accountability to residents who have stormwater pipes on their property, and private property rights charter. Following on from my question and the City of Vincent response from the last council meeting on the 13th of Feb 2024, I asked, does the City of Vincent abide by the private property rights charter? I did not ask what you were governed by. Question 1. Again, I asked, does the City of Vincent abide by the private property rights charter? I'm asking for a straightforward response with a yes or no answer. Question 2. I would like a detailed step-by-step process outlining how the City of Vincent conducts a formal hearing with natural justice and procedural fairness when a resident requests and holds a formal hearing with them. Question 3. I request a comprehensive explanation of the procedures that the City of Vincent follows after a formal hearing with a resident. Specifically, I inquire about handling of documentation, the review process of evidence, and the formal response provided to the resident, considering the gravity of a formal hearing and the evidence presented. Question 4. Why does the City of Vincent fail to provide transparency to those residents affected by stormwater pipes which run through their properties? The City of Vincent has been aware of this situation since the GHD Technical Memorandum Report in December 2022. Question. Is it unconscionable conduct or admission of material facts for the City of Vincent's decision makers to purposely withhold vital information from residents and ratepayers impacted by the stormwater pipe, which greatly affect the property values? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, councillors. I'm speaking agenda item 10.1. I'm Ralph Groom and I live in Mount Lawley. I refer to the survey results regarding this proposal, and if reference is made to only the responders who live or own property in the City of Vincent, the most relevant group, there are 29 responders in total. And if we assume those in favour came from this group, then 72.4% voted in favour of the change. As my previous colleague has already mentioned, of the votes against the proposal, 7 were from parents of Sacred Heart School children who voted against the proposal simply because it's easy to drop their children off travelling up Harold Street to Vincent Street. However, if the parents were given the option of safety over convenience, they would surely be voting in favour of the proposal. Unfortunately, the parents are not residents of the street and are not aware of the dangers confronting their children. By far the largest percentage of responders believe safety was the main reason for wanting change. In fact, of the 60 responses, 20 mentioned safety as a major issue. I represent residents directly affected by the proposal and believe council members should be proactive regarding this major safety concern. Council members should ensure a change is made prior to a major accident occurring in Harold Street. We are all aware the community will be voting for immediate change following a child, parent or resident being seriously injured. For council members, the safety of school children and residents should be paramount in any decision involving a change to a residential road's traffic flow. As Harold Street West residents, we have all witnessed motorists speeding up our street to Vincent Street. My recent experience was on the first day of school in late January when a motorcyclist decided to do a wheelie up the street from outside our house at 8:15 in the morning. Just 15 minutes later, when the school drop-off started, who knows what might have happened. It is obvious from the responses that by far the majority of responders want change before an accident seriously injures a child, parent or resident. It is a decision for the council members as to whether they want to act proactively in regard to this matter or suffer the immense consequences when a serious accident occurs and they suffer the public backlash and guilt of not acting to protect children, parents, or residents. And finally, the City of Vincent has a Beaufort Street, Harold Street intersection as a black spot project. And if the one-way proposal was adopted, this would significantly improve the safety record of this intersection. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name is Matt Dowell and I am from 217 Brisbane Street in Perth in Northbridge. Firstly, on behalf of the residents of Brisbane Street, the section between Lake and Palmerston Streets in particular, I'd like to thank you for placing our item on the agenda for consideration and discussion tonight under the petition. I've lived on Brisbane Street for almost 4 years now, and we, like all of the other residents on our street, absolutely love the inner city, urban location and community. Over the past 4 years, I myself have witnessed our end of town and Brisbane Street in particular become more active with great amenities like Golden Choice, Miller and Baker, Wines of Weil, Peasants Paradise, Vincent Wines and 7 Grams Chicken, all, for example, establishing themselves and complementing existing retail and hospitality venues. This injection of activity has most certainly increased the volume of traffic on Brisbane Street and created parking congestion issues at particular times of the day and the week. As much as we all love Golden Choice and would never want to see it go, it alone has contributed to the majority of these traffic and parking issues. Following years of comments and conversations with other residents who have also raised concerns in the past with Shire councillors, local members and the City of Vincent individually to no avail, I felt it was time to firstly canvass the residents to gauge their level of concern and seek authentic and valid feedback. I did this through a letter dropping a QR code for residents to conduct an electronic survey to ask for their feedback, thoughts, concerns, and any improvement suggestions they may have, if any. Of the 39 residential households provided this survey, there were 21 respondents within 1 week. There were also a couple of other residents who spoke to me after the survey, apologising for not getting to it, but also shared the same concerns and supported this petition. As you will have seen contained within the survey report, overwhelmingly, our residents share comparable concerns and have witnessed or been subject to all manner of incidents or near misses. Many residents hold concerns for their own safety, particularly when exiting and entering their own cars, when reverse parking, trying to find somewhere to park in the evenings, when walking across the road, or being anywhere near the infamous Lake and Brisbane Street intersection, which is a notorious near miss and accident zone. On behalf of the residents of Brisbane Street in the section between Lake and Palmerston in particular, I would like to respectfully request that the City of Vincent conduct a thorough feasibility study and assess options to implement traffic calming measures and address parking concerns. As this is not a new issue and one that has been formally raised in the past with the City to no avail, we respectfully ask that this matter be adequately investigated and recommended changes be identified, residents consulted, and changes be made to protect the safety of our residents before there is a tragic incident added to the examples outlined within the survey responses. Thank you again for your time and consideration of this matter.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Mayor and councillors, thank you, and city staff. I'm Trish Byrne from Perth, speaking to item 9.4 on the concrete batching plans. Firstly, just want to thank the city staff and council and mayor for all their support in this item, which I know members are very passionate about. I'm very pleased to see the officer's recommendations and the level of detail in the report and willingness to challenge the applications and the assumptions made in the applications. We support the officer's recommendations. However, just had a couple of points we wanted to make in relation to number 1.2b, which talks to the conditions included in attachment 3. The first and most importantly for us is the time that has been suggested in the conditions, whereas we believe there's no justification and insufficient information within the applications for any extension to be granted, and community have endured, to be honest, just quite enough, and there's obviously been several extensions already granted. Should the WAPC be of the view to approve the development applications, we would request for council to propose an extension of 24 months maximum. We also know that Wholesome have a DA approved for the expansion at their site in Cone Street, so we just don't feel there's any justification whatsoever to allow another 3-year extension. 24 at a maximum, please. We also have received the officers' replies to my queries around the operational hours and have seen that the officers have suggested linking this to the environmental regulations. We've also sought independent legal and planning advice from Belinda Morrich and more. And her advice I'll read out because she says it a lot better than me. It is also relevant in relation to the impact on amenity of environmental noise that the Environmental Protection Noise Regulations 1997 do not apply to noise emissions from roads. Each of these sites intends operations 24 hours per day when necessary. The noise associated with heavy vehicles using these roads to access these sites creates an adverse amenity impact, particularly overnight. This is not something that can be regulated through the environmental licensing system and is therefore the responsibility of the planning decision maker to consider. Could we please ask for councillors to really consider how operational hours will be treated? Environmental and noise or environmental protection noise regulations 1997 might not give us as the community enough protection. We're really concerned about that. Our other point that we know the officers wrote back on was landscaping, and appreciate the officers' responses in relation to perception of contributions to landscaping. All we would say is if we are to endure these eyesores for another extension of 2 or 3 years, surely we are due something back to beautify the area and just to ease the pain. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Mayor Zaman, councillors and staff. I'm Pauline Holdaway, a landowner in Edward Street, Claysbrook, and I'm speaking on item 9.4. The opportunity council has before them tonight is to request provisions that make it in Hanson and Holson's best interest to relocate. Council has already provided the carrot through the North Claysbrook planning framework by allocating increased densities on their properties to make it attractive for redevelopment. Council now has the opportunity to make it unattractive for them to continue to stay and operate on these sites. If an approval is issued for the extension of the temporary approval use, we request that this new period be a transition period between full operation and then the closure and decommissioning of the sites. To do this, the intensity of the land uses needs to be reduced. Operation limits would be a reasonable compromise between the long-suffering residents and landowners and the heavy industrial concrete batching plants of Holcim and Hanson. The first condition is that their operating hours needs to be limited from Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The second condition is that single-axle concrete trucks are only to operate from the site. No twin-steer, single, bi or tri-axle trucks. These operational clauses respect that they are a heavy industrial business operating in a residential area. The plants have recently started introducing triaxle trucks. These are 31-tonner trucks instead of the single or the biaxle trucks. The triaxle twin steer trucks are causing traffic to bank up as they're too large to fit down the residential streets side by side. They are heavier on the roads, causing increased wear and tear and damage. They are noisier, and they are less likely to be able to stop quickly if a safety issue occurs, such as a child running out onto the street or a smaller vehicle pulling out from parking. We also request that Council resolves to have its Environmental Health Department visit each plant weekly to ensure ongoing compliance with the Environmental Protection Act, the Environmental Protection Regulations for the concrete batching and cement product manufacturing, and also the Environmental Noise Regulations. If nothing else, the constant surveillance of the batching plant's operations to keep them within health and environmental provisions is essential. The batching plants will only do what they have to. This pressure to maintain and operate within the legislation is Council's responsibility and can only be achieved through constant monitoring. Finally, we request that any extension time to be as limited as possible. Holcim already has a planning approval, so it doesn't require extended time for it to achieve its building licence. They are independent companies and do not have to have the same approval terms. We do not need to give either of them any time to relax or delay. Please make it in Holcim and Hanson's best interest to relocate, require operational limits, keep them compliant and keep them moving. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Mayor Zaman and honourable councillors, good afternoon. My name is Peter Eastwood, landowner on Edward Street in Perth. I respectfully request your attention to agenda 9.4. Today I stand before you strongly opposed of any further extension of the temporary additional use approval of the Wholesome and Hanson concrete batching plants in Claysbrook. The term temporary additional use in the permit unmistakably indicates that the concrete plants were always aware that their presence at this location was not intended to be permanent. Therefore, since the permits issue in 1997, they should have been actively preparing to relocate. Should the WAPC decide to grant any additional extension, I urge the local council to exert pressure to mitigate the impact of the batching plants as they transition towards downsizing, closure and decommissioning. I would like to propose some additional following measures. Operation hours. Reducing the operation hours from 24-hour schedule to between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. This adjustment will help alleviate disturbances to the surrounding community. Truck size limitations. Mandate the use of single axle trucks instead of the dual or triaxle trucks. This change will effectively decrease noise pollution and mitigate traffic hazards associated with larger vehicles. Environmental compliance. Ensure rigorous adherence to the environmental obligations by conducting regular random inspections carried out by the City of Vincent Environment and Health Department. This measure is crucial for maintaining accountability and safeguarding the environment. Enforcement of the obligations. Impose stringent penalties, including fines or closure of the sites of any breach of environmental obligations by the batching plants. Enforcement must be unwavering to uphold the integrity of the environmental regulations and protect the well-beings of the community. In conclusion, I implore the council to prioritise the interests of the community and the environment in their decision-making regarding the future of the concrete batching plants in Claysbrook. Thank you for considering my concerns.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Mayor and councillors, Greg Eastwood, Dianella. I'm talking on item 9.4. A lot of what I've got to say has already been said. I just wanted to reiterate the point that the plants have known they had a temporary permit for 27 years. They've had 2 extensions. Both times they've said they need time to move. Third time they've said we need time to move. Wholesome already has planning permission for their Carlisle plant. They don't need time to move. They need better business decisions. They've had plenty of time. If the recommendation is to go forward that they do get extra time, we want to make a few requests. Request that the truck sizes be limited to single axle only. The 31-ton triaxle trucks that move through at the moment, causing horrific traffic problems. I've got a photo of 4 of them all banked up. You can't get anything around, move anywhere. It's just dangerous. We want to restrict the operating hours to allow the residents some hours of peace. At the moment, it's 24 hours. The noise is 24 hours in your house. Constant trucks, constant noises of dirt being dumped into the big hoppers. There's just no peace at all. I would also ask the council to consider making weekly visits to ensure that the EPA regulations are met, and that includes minimisation of dust. Any operator must not carry on concrete batching or cement production manufacturing unless it is carried out in such a manner that no visible dust escapes from the premises. If you go and have a look at any of the photos, there is dust everywhere throughout that whole suburb. They need to stop. They need to fix the plant. If they're going to continue manufacturing there, even for a week, they should stop and clean up what they've done and abide by the environmental protection regulations. There's no reason why they shouldn't have to do that. You know, I implore the council to not to recommend that any extension be given to them, and that they if they do, try and put some limits on what they can do on the site and to abide by the EPA. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I hear from the next speaker, please?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Joel Medalia from Yokine, and I'm speaking on item 9.3. Together with my wife, Emily, we're the owner-operators of Spinners Hostel and applicants for the development of 121 Fitzgerald Street. This development isn't just about building another much-needed accommodation facility in the city. It's about replicating and enhancing our proven model of success that we've established with Spinners Hostel. This new development will once again be offering a level of hostel accommodation not seen anywhere else in WA. Since Spinners opening on Newcastle Street, just around the corner, we've established ourselves as the benchmark hostel for accommodation in Perth. As such, earned a distinction as being the #1 rated hostel in Western Australia across all booking engines for the last 5 years. Our proposal for 121 Fitzgerald Street is a project driven by passion for the industry and is the result of extensive market, community research, and the culmination of 5 years of knowledge and feedback. The current building at 121 Fitzgerald Street mirrors Spinners Hostel in its brick and concrete construction, promising the same level of durability, sustainability, excellent sound and thermal insulation, and making it ideal candidate for a hostel that upholds our high standards. The chosen site is not arbitrary. Its proximity to Spinners Hostel, the city, excellent access to public transportation, lodging house development approval from our building certifier, and its position next to the Pickle District region were all contributing factors in deciding that this was the optimal location for our sister venue. The development, we feel, will greatly enhance the streetscape, contribute to the local economy, providing employees to local businesses, and will continue to foster positive relationships with our new neighbourhood, just as we have at Spinners. In all of our years of operation, we have received no complaints from any of our neighbours. To the contrary, when we spoke with them of the potential development around the corner, 100% of them wrote in favour of this project, something that both myself, my wife, and our management team are extremely proud of. We look forward to bringing this level of positive impact to 121 Fitzgerald Street to offer quality short-term accommodation where guests don't have to compromise on cleanliness, safety, quality of service to enjoy the unique communal experience that only a hostel can offer. We are very excited by the upcoming rejuvenation of the Pickle District and hope the council will support our efforts in being a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, please.
Dudley Meyer Highgate. The first item is item 12.4, the responses to the motions from the AGM. So I appreciate and acknowledge that the altered response to my motion about e-waste. It's different from last year, and I'm hoping that reflects the influence of a new mayor and a newish council. I saw the staff's response to Councillor Hallett's amendment, and I think if you think what's on the current website is good marketing, you've got something coming. It's one of those situations where you can only ask the question if you already knew the answer. As to the motion about council members responding to the community, I've already expressed my views in email and at the briefing. All I'll add is that if the current council members are of the view that they will respond to the community anyway, there'll be no downside by changing the current code of conduct. It's simply giving the community and future council members reasonable guidance and expectations. So I suggest reintroducing the requirements, advertise the changes to the community, and see if there's a flood of comments against such changes. I don't think there will be. As to the response about the organisation review, the suggestion wasn't about how the administration adheres to the corporate business plan and the like. I expect they do a good job. It's about whether or not the organisation structure is fit for purpose and is delivering cost-effective services. It's about comparing it with other organisations, including private sector, and answering questions like, do we really need 6 place managers and a coordinator? Do we really need so many waste project and support officers in waste? So that's all I was getting at. The next one is item 11.4, the mid-year budget review. Normally, you'd be pretty pleased if there was enough surplus cash that you could put an extra $1.5 million into a reserve and pay off a loan with an extra $1.4 million, particularly a high interest rate loan. You'd be pretty pleased if that outcome was a result of good management, but I don't think that's the case here. Firstly, the estimates of the operating results for 22-23, which forms a basis for this year's budget, and therefore this year's rates increase, was out by $2.4 million, according to the report. But I think that's a red herring. The real comparison should be the figures that councillors received at budget time compared to the real figure a week later, the 30th of June. That's the important figure for the surplus and the extra burden on ratepayers. There's also a claim that interest receipts were up by $900,000 because of higher interest rates and higher cash balances. That's true. There was $10 million more in cash at the end of January compared to the same time last year, and interest rates have gone up about 1% over that same period. To put the $900,000 in sort of give it a magnitude, $900,000 is equivalent to having an extra $18 million investing it for a full year at 5% interest. It's also equivalent of having the $55 million peak, which is what we had at the peak, for a full year at 1.6%. There's one indulgence. Last week, there was a comment about David Beattie, who's the coordinator of information, and they spoke in a very positive way. And so in terms of customer service poker, I wish to see that and raise that. On Saturday, the 17th of February, I sent an email to Mail at Vincent. About an hour later, I got a response from David. He gave me partial answer and said he would forward it on to another staff member. I thought that's a fantastic response on a Saturday. I've had some dealings with him before. Every time I've gone away thinking that was really good service. So if you want to improve service, look at David Beattie, the coordinator. And by the way, I never received the response from the person that was sent to. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And thank you for those positive comments. It's really valued. Do we have any further speakers that wish to address the meeting? Okay. So what's going to happen now is the items which have been identified are going to be brought forward on the agenda, and we're going to discuss them first. So there being no further questions, I close question time at 6:31. Okay, so Governance Manager, can you please confirm if any written statements were received?
Confirming that we received written statements from Cara May McGrogan of Leederville, Glenn Christie of Mount Lawley, and Dudley Meyer of Highgate. Those have been circulated to council members, and a response will be provided to those in the next meeting agenda, and confirming that responses to previous public questions are listed in the agenda.
Okay, so responses to previous public questions have been listed in the agenda. In terms of applications for leave of absence, I have received one application from Councillor Hallett, who is seeking leave of absence from the 8th to the 12th of April because of work purposes. Are there any other requests for leave of absence? Okay. Can I have a mover so that's moved by the Mayor and seconded by Councillor Wallace. Deputy Mayor.
Thanks for the promotion.
Councillor Castle, good, yeah, excellent, and sorry, and seconded by Councillor Wallace. Okay, so all those in favour? Okay, that's carried by majority. Okay, so we have received a petition. So a petition with 6 signatures has been received from Matt Dowell of Perth. The petition requests that the council investigate options to address the road safety concerns of residents of Brisbane Street between Lake and Palmerston Street. The petition attaches a survey completed by 22 people, comprising a large percentage of local residents, and outlines concerns including accidents and near misses, and an overwhelming desire for traffic calming and parking congestion to be addressed. Now, clause 2.24 petitions in the City of Vincent meeting procedures local law provides the following options for council on the receipt of a petition. 1, we will confine the presentation to the reading of the petition, which I've just done. 2, and the only motions that can be considered are A, that the petition be received, or B, that the petition be received and a report be prepared, or C, that the petition be received and be referred to a committee for consideration and report, or D, that the petition be received and be dealt with by the council. And I would like to propose B, that the petition be received and a report be prepared for the next, for the April council meeting. So do we have a mover for that? Okay, that's moved Councillor Hallett, seconded Councillor Alexander. All those in favour? Okay, that's passed. That's passed unanimously. Okay, so I don't have any deputations. I refer you now to the minutes of the ordinary meeting, which was held on the 13th of February 2024. Do we have a mover that those minutes be accepted? Moved by Councillor Wolf and seconded Councillor Warner. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about a particular matter and bring it to the attention of council. As councillors are aware, there's a lot of focus on the Leederville Town Centre at the moment, and in particular the decision to enter into a development of the car parks to work towards creating a transit-oriented development. One of the elements of that revitalisation and enhancement of the opportunity to have affordable housing in that precinct is that we have written to the Premier and to Minister Saffioti and also Minister Carey, asking that consideration be given to upgrade of the Leederville train station. People would know that the Leederville train station is pretty old. I will say the disability access is woeful, and at the moment it really doesn't serve the precinct very well, particularly in terms of providing an attractive option between the town of Cambridge and connecting up with the City of Vincent. So one of the things that we are keen to do is to tap into the state government's interest in supporting transit-oriented developments and ask that key consideration be given to prioritising an upgrade of, not just an upgrade, but a complete redo of the current Leederville train station. The thing is that at the moment, pedestrian overpass at Leederville doesn't have any shelter. It's not particularly safe, and as I say, the lack of disability access is a particular concern. So this is a letter which has come jointly from myself as the Mayor and also from Gary Mack, who's the Mayor of the town of Cambridge. And we're very keen to see an investment in this space and to see if this can serve as a bit of a linchpin for really consolidating revitalisation of that entire precinct. So we do have a state election coming up. Be great if one of the announcements which was made for that matter, if the opposition would like to join in with an announcement as well, we'd love to see dueling announcements to see upgrades of the Leederville train station. I think that it would be a step in the right direction and would really help to ensure that the revitalisation of this inner city precinct is able to occur in a meaningful way. So I just wanted to let councillors be aware that this is a key bit of advocacy that we're really hoping to see progress. It would be pretty special, I think, to finally get what is a very outdated train station upgraded to ensure it's fully accessible and also good and also improved amenity for people using that public transport. Okay, so now we'll move on to declarations of interest. The CEO has some declarations of interest that have already been declared.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Zaman, the 3 declarations of interest for tonight's meeting agenda as outlined from the briefing session last Tuesday include from Councillor Lafontaine, who declared an impartiality interest in relation to item 12.4, the AGM motions, the extent of Councillor Lafontaine's interest being that one of the residents who proposed a motion supported Councillor Lafontaine's election campaign. Mayor Zaman declared an impartiality interest in relation to item 9.4 on the proposed extension of time to existing concrete batching plants. Mayor Zaman noted the extent of the interest is that she lives within the North Claysbrook Planning Framework area and has been an active member of the community. Mayor Zaman also declared an impartiality interest in relation to item 11.5, the proposal to hold events at Leederville Oval. The extent of the interest being that Mayor Zaman is a member of the East Perth Football Club who have a lease of a portion of Leederville Oval. That's all, Mayor Zaman.
Thank you, Go the Mighty Royals. Do any other councillors have any late declarations? Okay, so all right. Okay. Might just do that. That's it. Go around.
Just confirm that we.
Okay, so just confirming the ones which we are already going to be discussing. We've got 10.1, 9.4, 9.3, 12.4 and 11.4 so far. And we will also go around noting that 11.4 also requires an absolute majority. So that's already been noted anyway. And we've already had those matters where we don't have any matters where anyone's declared a financial or proximity interest. So I'm just going to go around now to see which items councillors wish to discuss. Councillor Warner.
9.2.
Councillor Wallace. Councillor Lafontaine. Councillor Castle.
13.1.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, Councillor Greer. Councillor Alexander. Councillor Wolf.
12.5, please.
Councillor Hallett. Okay, and the ones that I wanted to speak to have already been listed. So we'll just work out now those items that are going to be passed on block.
The following items will be moved on block: 9.1, 11.1, 11.2, 11.3, 11.5, 12.1, 12.2, 12.3.
So do I have a mover, Councillor Hallett, and seconded Councillor Castle? Okay, all those in favour? Okay, that's passed. Okay, so for this first item for discussion is 10.1 Beaufort Street Precinct Area Road Safety Treatments. Firstly, do I have a mover for this motion? Okay, moved Councillor Castle. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Hallett. Okay, so Councillor Castle, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions before I'll speak to it. I've got some concerns about how this is going to work, so I've just wondered if the manager could advise. The recommendation at the moment is agnostic on direction, and we did talk about that last week. My question is about the consultation that happened with the community. Was there a explicit or implicit direction included in that consultation?
Through the chair, and the consultation had a concept for one way from Vincent Street to Beaufort Street that was mapped out, and we took on board community feedback with that concept.
So that direction came from the initial petition, the initial concerns raised by the community. Is that correct?
No, that was via the precinct wide analysis done by administration.
Okay, so what I understand from that is that what we're looking at here is consultation on one way between Vincent and Beaufort, so west to east and not the other way around?
That's correct. However, during the community consultation, it was noted that some comments came back with regards to having it from Beaufort to Vincent Street. And when administration looked into that, we were comfortable that there was no negative effects to that, and the positive effects of treating the crashes remain the same.
Okay, well, I'll flag that as my first concern, that I don't believe that we have consulted on either direction. And I'm not sure that the community that we've been hearing from is necessarily going to be happy with a solution that is one way from Vincent to Beaufort. My understanding is a big part of the problem is the people cutting the corner from Beaufort to Vincent. On the other end, on Vincent Street, it's left in and left out. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. So that's a concern that I have, because if we make this road one way, we're restricting, I realise that would achieve a drop in volume, but we are restricting movement between Harold Street heading north. Because you can only, if you were to go Beaufort to Vincent, you'd only turn left, can't turn right. So that is a concern that I have. The other bigger concern is that when we discussed this at council last time, the reason we didn't make a decision at the time is because we wanted to consider it in the context of the entire precinct. I don't believe that's what we have here. We still have a proposal that solves one issue and defers the consideration of the rest of the precinct. And I don't think that I'm comfortable with that. I'm really cognizant that the community is desperate for a solution, and I'm not comfortable that we are taking so long with that. But I also don't like a proposal that hasn't got the rest of the precinct planned in it. For example, if we were to consider treatments on Beaufort Street that included a median strip at the end of Harold Street, that would severely limit the flow of traffic, given that there's already a median at the other end at Vincent. That means that we can't consider that as an option, potentially. So it limits what we can consider for Beaufort Street. And I just think that probably for the entire time I've been on council, we have been talking about precinct-wide planning, and that we need to start actually doing that and putting proposals that include the entire area rather than one street. I also have some concerns with the consultation. I absolutely note the comments in the gallery, and I agree that the feedback from the residents, I would give that a higher weight, and I give appropriate weight to feedback from the parents and of the school kids and from people who may use it as a cut through. But I am concerned that we don't appear to have had any feedback from the school itself or from the church. I'm not sure, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, if they have given specific feedback.
Through the chair, my understanding is we receive feedback from the school, yes.
And from the church?
Through the chair, I'm not sure about the church, but I know the school give feedback.
All right. Look, I think that I suppose what I would foreshadow is that I'd be comfortable deferring this for a bit more information. I particularly would like to know what the community believes or how they feel about the direction that's being, or a particular direction being proposed as opposed to leaving it up to Main Roads. And I just think that we need a little bit more certainty about what's happening in the rest of the precinct before we can proceed.
Councillor Hallett.
Thanks, Councillor Castle. I would like to ask a question. What's administration's view of the first part of the motion reverting to only one option in terms of one way rather than being agnostic about it?
Through the chair, the original concept had it from Vincent Street running through to Beaufort Street, and that was really to try to deal with that intersection as well. We did do precinct-wide traffic analysis, and through that process, we do propose that node at the corner or intersection, sorry, from Harold Street and Beaufort Street. We just wanted to leave an option to go back to Main Roads via the community feedback. There was comments on having it the other way. When we analyze that flow from Beaufort Street through to Vincent Street, again, there was no negative impacts, and the positive impacts stayed the same. So we just wanted to allow that option.
Thank you. Do you have any sense of, with the people that gave the feedback around the other way, was that the residents or did that come from broader participants?
Through the chair, I'm not exactly sure if that came from residents or the wider community.
What's administration's opinion on a deferral?
Through the chair, I feel that administration has done enough traffic analysis to warrant going to Main Roads with the one way. There is definite positive impacts of doing that. We have done a wider precinct traffic analysis of the Highgate area, and we now know that allowing free flowing traffic rather than diverting traffic is the way to go. So we're probably confident that even if it was deferred, we'd probably still land with the same treatment options as proposed within this report.
Thank you. I guess I hear Councillor Castle's concerns. Most council members will know that I'm pretty keen on traffic intervention, however disruptive it might be. But we've also learned from that in the past. So I'm happy to hear from other councillors as to where they're landing on this one.
Councillor Wolf.
Could I just ask a question first, please? I think we mentioned that we did get feedback from the school, but not the church. Was that correct?
Through the chair, I'm not sure if the church could have responded. I don't know that off my top of my head.
Confirm, please, what the feedback actually was from the school.
Through the chair, yes, I would probably need to take that on notice because I don't have that information at hand.
Okay, do any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Warner.
Councillor Castle's comments about the red flag there, and the sort of, we did consultation on something and then we're sort of now giving it, we're not sort of pursuing that particular thing. That really, I really feel that and has really concerned me. I noted that my question and the response about a trial from last week didn't make it into our briefing notes. So I double checked the video and the response is that is just not the desired way to go. Despite this, I'd still like to know if it's an option and if it would require Main Roads approval, or couldn't this be done with our own resources? And if so, at what sort of cost? We're looking at the implementation of this at 50 to 70K, which I'm sorry, I don't quite comprehend where that goes, but if we've done it wrong, if we're doing it wrong and we need to retract it, we're now looking at between 30 and 50. I'm just really conscious of pushing any problem onto another road. So I'd be really interested in pursuing a potential trial. I have no doubt that there needs something to be done here. I spent time on Sunday with Councillor Wolf walking up and down Harold Street just to see it for ourselves. So this needs to be looked into, but I just want to make sure that we get it right.
Councillor Alexander.
I lived in 28 Vincent Street for 20 years, which is halfway between Beaufort and Williams. So, and walked to Harold Street, and so I know the area quite well. And I'd support the amendment that Councillor Castle is putting forward to just have another look.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zaman. I feel like the conversation we're having here tonight is reflective of the survey, in that actually everyone acknowledges that Harold Street is a problem for the community. However, the solution that's needed has not really got a clear consensus and a clear direction from the community or here tonight. So just to echo those concerns, I would be concerned about the impact on the surrounding roads, but noting that we would need to find a solution for folks sooner rather than later. So just to note that I'd be open to a trial or a deferral conversation so that we get this right first time.
Councillor LaFontaine.
Thank you, Mayor Zaman. Yeah, having visited the street, I agree with the local residents that it is dangerous. And as I raised at the briefing last week, I am also concerned that what is being proposed is not what's consulted on. Specifically, as Councillor Castle mentioned, the directions Beaufort to Vincent Street. And therefore, yeah, I'm also supportive of Councillor Castle's mention of a deferral. And yes, thank you.
Do any further councillors wish to speak? Councillor Wolf, you've already spoken. Oh, sorry, it's a question. Okay.
Thank you. But just a short comment to say I would also be supportive. I really struggled with the deferral. I really struggled with this one. I sat with it for a long time and kind of went through the pros and cons of it. And I think for me, that was a sign that there was not enough information. I wasn't comfortable with the consultation in terms of the direction, and questions to me like, what was the view of the school, were missing for me. So I would also support the deferral. Also with consideration of a trial and the practical impacts of that and what it might mean. Thanks.
Sorry, I'd just like to make the comment that I'm also concerned that we need to ensure that there is work that's very clear, that we're quite clear about the impact on the surrounding streets. And I'm just conscious that once you put in measures, it costs a fortune to take them out if they are deemed not to be fit for purpose. Having said that, I also hear very clearly that this is a priority, and I have a great deal of empathy for the view shared by residents as to the risk of a tragedy occurring if we don't act on this in a timely way. So I am supportive of a deferral in order to do more work, but I think that is on the basis that we are trying to ensure that this is an absolute priority. So we've just got to feel confident that we're really getting it right, or at least with a very strong level of support within the community. I'm not quite sure that we're there yet. Councillor Castle, you wish to conclude your comments?
No, I'd like to ask some questions before moving a procedural motion. Given the discussion that we've had tonight, I'm keen for this to be deferred no more than 1 month. So my question for administration is, I'd like for the reasons for deferral to be clear, so you know exactly what we would like. Do you believe we can conduct quick consultation on the direction of the one-way street? That's my first question.
Through the chair, I believe we would need 21 days to do another consultation on another proposal.
Does that mean it's then not able to come back in April?
Through the chair, with school holidays as well during that period, so probably not.
Okay, it's going to have to be May then. From my point of view, I suppose I might get some guidance on a procedural motion. Should I outline my reasons now before moving it or after moving it?
Through the chair, the preference would be that you outline your reasons and the date for return and table that. And if we get a mover, then that proceeds.
Okay, so what I would like to see if this matter is deferred is further consultation on the direction of the one-way traffic and consideration of a trial. I will say I'm not convinced that I'm in favour of a trial, but I'm happy for that information to be presented back to council so we can make a decision on that, particularly the cost of implementation and removal. I don't think you can solve my other concern about the wider precinct in 2 months, but I would appreciate more information when this report returns on how this treatment might limit the options that we can take in Beaufort Street particularly, but in the precinct, the road safety implementation plan that is referenced in clause 3. Is that enough information for you?
Through the chair, yes.
So
and time frame.
Oh, sorry. Time frame is bringing that report back to council in May, the May meeting.
Through the chair, yes, that's okay.
So do I move that now?
Yes. So Councillor Castle,
I would like to move a deferral motion on that basis.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that deferral motion? Seconded Councillor Alexander. Okay. So now only Councillor Castle and Councillor Alexander may speak. So Councillor Castle, do you wish to say anything further?
No, I've said it all.
Councillor Alexander, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'd just like to see a little more evidence of why it's required to be one way. Like how many accidents have there been there in the last, 10 years and that sort of thing. Because, and where are the cars that are diverted? Where are they going to go?
Okay, so I'm going to put the procedural motion. All those in favour? Okay, that's passed unanimously. So I will now move back to the substantive motion. It's done, so we don't need to vote it down. Okay. All right then. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Manager. We'll move on. Okay, and now we move to item 9.4, a proposed extension of time to existing concrete batching plants, Claysbrook Road in Perth. Do we have a mover for this motion? Moved Councillor Castle. Do we have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Hallett. Okay, Councillor Castle, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions, particularly in relation to some items raised in the gallery. The first was around whether road noise can be regulated through the environmental protection regulations or whether that is something that would need to be conditioned.
Through the Mayor, the short answer is it can't be regulated through the noise regs. It would be regulated through the various approvals that they need, their development approval, and also if there was an approval they required under the EP Act, which we're still not clear on. A license, as was mentioned, wouldn't govern that. But if they did need an approval through the Environmental Protection Act, then that could address that issue too, as a result of the noise impact on the residents.
So is that something that we could add to the recommended conditions that we are seeking if the extension is granted, or is that a different process?
So it does relate to the matter that is before council, the submission made to the WAPC on this application. I guess the administration's recommendation is that the noise impact from the vehicles on the roads is unacceptable. And so we're recommending that no approval be granted. And so the question for council is whether or not something needs to be added to the conditions that are recommended around the impact truck noise would have on the residents.
I might leave that question with you while there is discussion, because I am interested if administration thinks that that is already covered in what we have recommended if it is extended, or whether it would be advisable to add another condition, but we can come back to that. I suppose related to that, there was also a request from the gallery about limiting truck size, which may have if that was to be limited, may actually also address the road noise issue. So I have a question whether there is a condition that we could add that is likely to be accepted and would be effective in reducing that.
Yes, through the Mayor, there is a condition that could be added. We've drafted something up. It's pretty simple, really just follows on from what was mentioned by the community members.
That's good to hear. Be very happy to see that on the screen at some point to potentially move an amendment. There was also discussion around limits on hours and whether, so my question is whether that's something that we could realistically add as a recommended condition.
Yes, through the Mayor, again, that could be added, and we've drafted something up in that regard too.
Great. Maybe we'll circle back to those at the end of the discussion. I suppose in the meantime, 100% support the council, the administration recommendation. I don't think there's really much dissension in this room, particularly about the need for the concrete batching plants to go. I 100% agree with the comments in the gallery that they have had more than enough time. The writing has been on the wall for many, many years, and to be quite honest, there's been nothing done or nothing material done to advance their transition. I know City of Vincent's been working hard to help that to happen, but I'm not seeing much good faith on the part of the concrete batching plants to actually understand that this approval will not last forever and that the time has come to move on. So I would encourage administration, as I know they're already doing, to push as hard as possible for no extension. But I'm also really happy to see consideration of a number of conditions that if we are to have to deal with these plants for a few years longer, to actually minimise the impact on the residents. And I really look forward to seeing a brighter Claysbrook that lives up to the potential that we've all been dreaming about for so long. Maybe I'll move the amendment on the green since the Mayor can't move it herself. I'll see if I have a seconder first before I ask more questions.
Okay, so now we're referring to the amendment. Thank you, that I'm not able to move from the chair, but that and that's on the green paper in front of you. Do we have a seconder for that amendment? Do you want seconded, Councillor Greer? Okay, so Councillor Castle, would you like to speak to the amendment, and perhaps we can put this up on the screen so people can know what it is we're talking about?
Thank you. I would like, if possible, a really quick summary of what this amendment actually proposes for the benefit of everybody.
Through you, Ms. Mon, as a very quick summary, it would reduce the approval period to 2 years. So that would be until the 30th of June, 2026.
Thank you. Look, I think we heard it in the gallery. We've talked about this before. We are trying to keep this process as absolutely tight as possible. And if we are forced to accept that there will be a few more years, then let's make that as short as possible. So 100% recommend a shorter period.
Councillor Greer, do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Zaman. It's very clear from the community, and thank you for coming tonight, that you're the concrete batching plants have long overstayed their welcome, and the existence of the concrete batching plants is widely out of step with our collective vision for the future of Claysbrook. Not to mention the health concerns of the noise and the dust that have been raised. So I strongly agree with administration's recommendation in terms of not continuing with the concrete batching plants. But also, I appreciate Mayor Zaman raising this and reducing the amount of time that if we are stuck with them for longer, that is set to 30th of June 2026. Additionally, I would be open to further consideration of amendments from what has been raised from the gallery tonight to get us to the best possible place to look after people's health if it is continued over the next few years, so we can have a better, brighter Claysbrook.
I'd like to speak to the amendment, and I thank Councillor Castle for being prepared to move it and Councillor Greer for also being prepared to second it. I really do appreciate that. I think that we can all agree that the application by the two concrete batching plants to have an extension over 7 years is an abomination. And I think it's quite frankly, I was disgusted when I saw that was the sort of figure that they were trying to put on the table. Obviously, there's a hope that it'll be 7 years, but it's clearly they're trying to put forward a bit of ambit as well, hoping that maybe the 7 years might just be 5 or something like that. I share the concerns of everybody in the community, and that really they just need to stop immediately. But the concern has always been that there needs to be a way to ultimately get the concrete batching plants out, and the idea that they would potentially land bank and leave their infrastructure there to wait for a more favourable political climate, to have infrastructure that would potentially attract antisocial behaviour in the meantime is untenable. And so getting them out is an absolute priority. Completely agree with the suggestion that we put in limitations around how those operations can work. As someone who does live in that precinct, I can tell you now, my house, our cars, our plants, everything gets covered in dust. It has no godly reason to be able to be there. It's right in the middle of where people are actually living and where people are trying to work. And that's without even looking at the future of what it is that we're trying to do here. They are really noisy, and it is the trucks, but it's also the actual concrete batching plants themselves. And so the idea of actually having them operate at limited times is also highly appealing and would give a lot of people a fair bit of respite from this. So I'm really pleased. I think 2 years is too long, but I'm also very mindful that the minister has expressed a concern about wanting to ensure that there is a steady stream of concrete. I don't share those concerns. I think there's plenty of other concrete batching plants that are not relying on breaching good planning order in order to be able to ensure that they are providing the market. But that being the case, 2 years, absolute maximum. And hopefully then I can look forward to the day when I can go out there, see it finally cleared once and for all, pop the champagne. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. I concur with everything that has been said, and I couldn't say it any better. I just wanted to add one thing, which is just to recognise the angst of residents having to live next to something which is damaging to health, which is damaging to the vitality and the potential of the area. And I saw noise pollution. I can only imagine sort of what that means in terms of not only holding the area back, but holding back your plans and your life, because it does impact on your life, your homes and your future. So really appreciate all of the work that administration's done. It's time to go.
Would anyone else like to speak to this amendment? Councillor Warner.
Just following up on Councillor Wolf there, yes, her acknowledgement of the residents is really important. And I'd just like to share that I can understand their frustration that in 2018 this document was signed specifically to provide certainty for them that in 2024 this would be over. So they've had that the word certainty written there for them, and to have that ripped away from them and then maybe 2 years, maybe 7 years, maybe they'll push it even further, is incredibly frustrating. And I'm really gobsmacked that we operate in this sort of society.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Alexander.
We shouldn't underestimate the pull and the power that this group has. And, perhaps we need to consider a promotional exercise in this to have them removed and the reasons why. But, and I know people know that they do have plenty of pull around town, and that's what they rely on. And that's when, promises are made and then they get broken, and then it's bad luck. And, you've got 7 years and 5 maybe. So I just suggest we might want to consider a promotional campaign to have this happen.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Alexander. Does anyone else wish to speak to this amendment? Councillor Castle, do you wish to wrap up your? Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Okay, that's passed unanimously. Thank you. So now we'll go back to the amended substantive motion. Councillor Castle.
Thank you. Firstly, want to apologise to Councillor Hallett for moving an amendment before allowing the seconder to speak. Very bad etiquette. I'm very sorry. I just got a bit excited and needed to move it. So I'm happy to let others speak on this, on the now amended motion. But just would flag that I'd like to come back to some of those drafted amendments later and see if they might be something that council's interested in.
Councillor Hallett.
I have nothing to repeat other than I'd like to move some amendments if they can be given to us.
Okay, so we've got some amendments up on the screen and they're about to be yep. Okay, sorry, people. We're just making sure everyone can see the amendments.
Through Mayor Zaman, if I might, this one simply relates to allowing only single axle vehicles to and from the site. So we've just drafted this up. Now, if a council member wants any changes, please let us know.
Apologies. My eyesight is so bad, I can't actually read it at all. So if there's a way. Thank you. I'm getting old, which is better than the alternative. Councillor Hallett.
Thank you. Just on follow up to that. So the triple axle ones are not considered trucks, and that's why it's worded that way. Thanks for zooming in.
Councillor Hallett, are you satisfied with that proposed amendment?
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a seconder for the proposed amendment? Seconded by Councillor Castle. Okay, so Councillor Hallett, do you wish to speak to the amendment? Okay, Councillor Castle, do you wish to speak to the amendment? Okay, does any other councillor wish to speak to the amendment? Okay, I'll put the amendment then. All those in favour? Okay, that's passed unanimously. Okay, and so Councillor Hallett, do you want to go back to speaking to the substantive amended motion?
I think there might be another amendment, possibly operation times.
Okay, so we're just waiting for the amendments for the operation times from 9:30 in the morning to 9:45. No, I'm joking. Sorry, I wish.
Through you, Mayor Zaman, the
Yes.
question will be to the mover, what hours, there are a number of different hours been mentioned by members of the public from last week to this week. So the question will be which hours, obviously reviewing the wording that we've drafted up there as well.
So I'll just give councillors an opportunity to read it and myself.
Can I ask a question while everybody's reading that?
Yes, councillor Castle.
Just wondering for the director if there's, are there standard hours for an operation of this kind?
It's a very interesting question through you, Mayor. I understand that there was a recent change to one of the batching plant operators to start at 4 a.m. Certainly, the earlier start. Look, the way the noise regulations work, you can't start construction until 7 a.m. So, but you would expect that there will be work being done to prepare the concrete in order for it to be delivered on site at 7 for building contracts. So, you know, that's a consideration, as is the impact that preparing the concrete and then trucking it out of the site before 7 a.m. when the noise regs allow additional noise. So they're probably the two main considerations.
Councillor Castle. Okay, so Councillor Hallett, do you have a preference for which one you want to move?
I have no preference for hours. I'd probably prefer less, but if that's your recommendation, happy to move it and we can discuss it while it's live, given that it has no bearing until we move it.
Okay, so Councillor Hallett is going to move the recommendation as presented. Do I have a seconder to that? Seconded by Councillor Castle. Councillor Hallett, would you like to speak to that?
Happy to support that until argued otherwise. I think 6 p.m. sounds reasonable for that reason. I guess I'm less sure about the 10 p.m. If you can maybe comment on that.
Yeah, through the mayor, that also relates to the noise regulations. So at 10 p.m, the most restrictive noise regulations kick in between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. So that was where that number came from. Again, there are kind of in the middle restrictions between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m.
Councillor Castle.
Supportive of putting a restriction. I think that's too long. I suppose my concern is I'd like to say 9 to 5, but I know that's not realistic. And I would like us to propose something that if we get to this point, has a good chance of being adopted or recommended by the WAPC. So, yeah. So, I think we need to find that middle ground of what is basically what's reasonable. I'd prefer 7 a.m, but I understand the argument for 6 a.m. And I suppose based on what you've just said about restricted noise, could I suggest that we say 6 a.m. to 7 p.m? I don't see why you still need to operate a concrete batching plant at 10 p.m. You're not going off to do more construction after that.
So Councillor Hallett, are you prepared to accept that amendment to your amendment? Okay, so what's being proposed now is the timeframes that are being proposed by Councillor Hallett are that it be 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so Councillor Castle is seconding that. Okay, so that's the amendment we have in front of us. Does anyone wish to speak to this amendment? Okay, Councillor Hallett, do you want to say anything further? Okay, I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Hallett, did you have any further amendments that you wish to propose?
I feel like there is another one.
There's two other matters to mention. One, landscaping's been mentioned, so we'll pop that up in 1 second. And while we're waiting for that, I'll just mention that in relation to truck noise on the roads, my advice is that it's covered in the current condition, which we have included in our recommendation, which says that an updated environmental management plan is to be provided that addresses environmental noise impacts, including an assessment of the operation of the plants, including vehicle movements, and ensures that they comply with the assigned levels. So that is covered off already in a condition. So the landscaping conditions up on the screen there.
Okay, so we've got the landscaping condition that's been proposed up on the screen now. I'll give people a chance to read it. Okay, so Councillor Castle would like to move the amendment as circulated. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded Councillor Hallett. Councillor Castle, would you like to speak to this amendment?
Thank you. Just a question. We specifically talk about the public art, and I'm just wondering, do we need more detail on what landscaping or what level of landscaping we expect, or are you comfortable that would be covered in the management plan?
Yes, through the Mayor, we're comfortable that will be covered through the management plan. We're not certain at this point what extent of landscaping can be provided. It'll be the maximum possible. That's the intent.
Great. And very supportive of the public art aspect of it. I suppose I'd like an assurance that in council's consideration or in the administration's consideration of that through the plan, that it's understood it's temporary art, so that, you know, there's an adequate expectation of what is produced. I just don't want something that is someone's beautiful life work to be installed and then removed 2 years later. So I'm sure that that will be covered. I just wanted to make that point.
Hey, Councillor Hallett, do you wish to speak to this? Does anyone else wish to speak to this amendment? Okay, all those in favour? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Hallett, did you still haven't spoken to the substantive motion with all of the amendments?
I support our continued opposition to the batching plants being in existence.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the amended substantive motion? Councillor Wallace.
Thanks, Mayor Zaman. I just have a very supportive of the substantive motion and just had a question about the environmental management plan and the assessment of vehicle noise. Is it worth clarifying that that assessment should include off-site vehicles? I guess it would be typical to consider on-site vehicle movements as part of that assessment. I'm just wondering if the scope's broad enough.
Yes, through Mayor Zaman, Mitch and I had a discussion about this just before, and our view was that it is covered, clearly covered by that condition currently.
Great, thank you.
Okay, were there any further comments? Okay, so Councillor Castle, would you like to make any final comments? Okay, I'm going to move the final substantive motion. All those in favour? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next item for discussion is 9.3, proposed change of use from office to residential building short-term accommodation, including alterations and additions at number 121 Fitzgerald Street, West Perth. Now, do we have a mover for this? Move Jonathan Hallett. Sorry, Councillor Hallett, beg your pardon. Seconded, Councillor Warner. Okay, Councillor Hallett, do you wish to speak to this?
Yes, thank you. I'm very supportive of this and acknowledge that the applicants have been waiting patiently for us to get to this one. I'm very supportive. I think this is a really great adaptive reuse of a building that certainly needs some work, and I think it fits in very well with the broader changes that are happening in the Pickles district just down the road as well. So I think this is really exciting. They have a great track record with the other premises. And I think the issues around parking were canvassed quite a bit last week. And just to note that we are aware that there's concerns from the neighbouring property, but in terms of the use of this particular premises, I'm very comfortable with the location warrants less parking. Thanks.
Councillor Warner.
Thank you. I just wanted to flag an amendment on this, but broadly, I'm really supportive of this as well. And I would, apart from my noted amendment, would like to support it. So let me know when I'm supposed to speak up about an amendment.
Would you like to move the amendment now so that people can speak to the amendment and then potentially speak to the amended motion?
Yes, please. It's mostly the one on the yellow that you're going to get. It's slightly amended on the amendment though.
Okay, so we draw people's attention to the circulated amendment in yellow. Councillor Warner, do you want to advise which bits you're looking to deviate from?
Certainly. So what I was really keen to establish here was basically more facilities for parking bikes and e-scooters. That addresses the parking concerns of the residents, and it, we are looking at a property that's looking at 47 people at one time with very limited space for any vehicles. So currently we're looking at having 3 bicycle hanging racks inside the premises. So what I'm really looking for is more than that. I know this says 4. I'm actually not being quite specific to restricting it to 4, but could we have a little bit more than 3, please, that are easily accessible for the visitors, the guests, the staff, etc. to get to. I'm worried that if there's 3 inside hanging up, then that's not going to be very accessible, basically. So can we just broaden that a little bit so that we can encourage alternate forms of transport?
So, Councillor Warner, can I get an indication in terms of the amendment that's being circulated on the yellow? Is there anything? It sounds like you're wanting to not have 4 bicycle parking spaces, but to have maybe additional. Is that what you're after? So, is that what it is you're proposing?
Yeah, I'd like it to be additional, and I'd also like to make it not quite as specific as being inside. If there is space, I understand the courtyard is a tight space, but if there is space to do this outside as well, so there is a more accessible place to store your vehicle, then that would be appreciated.
So can I just go to administration, please? Thank you, to get your guidance about an appropriate amendment.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Zaman. The change is limited to, as drafted in the proposed amendment, that is, going from 3 bicycle parking bays or 3 bicycle parking spaces to 4 bicycle parking spaces. That's the extent of the change captured in the amendment. From administration's perspective, there is an internal store area which measures 2 meters wide. And we've done the calculations, we've run the numbers in terms of maximising bike storage, and there's prescribed standards under the Australian standards, 0.5 meters wide for each bicycle. So that's a maximum of 4 within that storage area. We're of the view that that location internally is fit for purpose, easily accessible, in a safe location and secure, because the nature of the use is such that those that would be staying here would be staying for a period of time, and that's where they would locate the bike, rather than something that would be located perhaps outside. Now, we've also explored outside opportunities. There's a courtyard to the street frontage. However, based on its configuration and to maximise its use with seating and such, there is limited opportunity to install a bike rack, and probably is going to impinge on its functionality. There's a car bay to the rear with an adjacent drying court that is maximised as well for those purposes. So for all those reasons, we've recommended increasing the number of bike parking spaces on site within the premises to the 4, and that's the maximum that we could identify.
Thank you. So basically you're saying that you've explored all the possibilities, and the most that we could squeeze out of this would be 1 more parking spot inside. If you're confident that's the most we can get, then I'll settle for that. But I just wanted to say that, yeah, we wanted to explore all the options to give people as many facilities as possible.
Okay, so just confirming, Councillor Warner, that you'll be moving the amendment as it's written on the yellow paper in front of us. Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Wolf. Okay, and so Councillor Warner, do you wish to speak further to the amendment? Councillor Wolf?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd support that amendment on the advice of administration. But just an additional comment, I wonder if there would be scope then just to ensure that should our e-scooter trail continue, that we do have accessible drop-off and pick-up locations close to the site.
Do you want to take that as just as a comment? Okay. So does anyone else wish to speak to this amendment? Okay, so Councillor want to say anything further? Okay, I'm happy to put the amendment. All those in favour? Okay, that's passed unanimously. Thank you. So Councillor Warner, did you wish to speak to the substantive amended motion?
I need to say thank you to the people in our gallery who've been sitting through all of this. They've got better things to do on a Tuesday night, and I really support what they're trying to achieve here. So thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Wolf.
Just to add my support, I'm excited about this. I think we worked through a range of issues at the briefing, which I'm sort of comfortable with and now really happy to support. The location makes sense, being on a main road, being close to public transport, and there are businesses around there who will definitely benefit from the additional customers. So assuming all goes well tonight, we'd just like to wish the applicants all the best for this venture.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? I'd like to say something. I'm also very supportive of this particular proposal. I think it's going to really help to bolster the area, and I also appreciate that it will fit in well with future plans for the Pickle District as well, and hopefully it will also give additional needed business to that really excellent coffee shop that's on the corner. The one thing that really comes to mind, though, with this proposal coming up is the importance of finally addressing the corner at Fitzgerald and Newcastle Street, which is, I would describe as potentially lethal. I've raised before, not in the chamber, but certainly with administration, my concerns at the lack of appropriate signalling for people to be able to safely cross. If you are a person with disability trying to cross, it is absolutely dangerous. I understand that this is a corner which has been identified as needing to have some work. I would say that it really should be prioritised, and the fact that we're going to have a number of people who are going to be now residing in close proximity, who will be using scooters and who will be walking and who will be using bicycles, really reinforces that we're going to have to do something about that corner. So I hope that this is recognised as an absolute priority, because I'm absolutely positive that the people who are going to be setting this up want to ensure that the people living there are going to be staying there are going to be as safe as possible. And I think that's something we all want. Councillor, who moved it again? I'm trying to remember. Councillor Hallett, do you wish to say anything further? Okay, I will put the proposal. All those in favour? Okay, that's passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we've been asked to go to 9.2 to try to facilitate those people who are waiting very, very patiently. So that's Lindsay Street, Perth, proposed alterations and additions to office. Okay, so do we have a mover for that proposal? Moved, Councillor Warner. Do we have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Warner, do you wish to speak to this?
Thank you. Look, I just really wanted to show my support for this and to acknowledge that since our briefing, 2.4 has been added to the notes, which really ensures that the tiles, when they're removed, will be stored safely and to the satisfaction of the Heritage Council of WA. So I'm really glad to have had that achieved, and I thank the people who've been sitting here. waiting to hear about this for their time tonight, but I think this is the best conclusion that we can come to. Thank you.
Okay, oh, no, sorry, you're gonna have to remind me. Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Mayor Zaman. I don't have much to add, just supportive of this substantive. Thanks.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Councillor Warner, do you want to say anything further?
Only that I didn't know that we had this old flour mill in Vincent. So this has been a great revelation for me. And if there's any more fascinating spaces, I'd love to know more about them and for us to explore our heritage even more. So thank you for it coming to the table.
Okay, I'm going to put the proposal. All those in favour? Okay, that's passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you for waiting. Okay, so now we're going to move to 12.4, responses to motions carried at the annual general meeting of electors held on 1st of February 2024. Do I have a mover for this? Moved, Councillor Hallett. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Castle. Councillor Hallett.
Thank you. I'm supportive of the substantive and just to flag that I've got a couple of amendments for motion 4.5.
Okay, do you wish to move the amendment now or do you wish to wait? Okay, Councillor Castle.
Also supportive of potential amendments that I've seen. And I have one of my own on motion 4.2, but I'll wait for the others to be moved.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak to this agenda item? Okay, Councillor Hallett, do you wish to move your amendment?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to move the amendment on the fuchsia, which is related to motion 4.51 e-waste. And it is essentially just adding a deadline for presenting the findings of that investigation to council by June 2024. And then also another insertion around promoting the Buy Nothing network. And these were kindly provided to us by Mr. Meyer, who was the mover of the original motion at the AGM. So thank you for those.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Castle. Do you wish to speak to that?
I'm supportive of this. I would note that the Verge Valet website also promotes reuse, not necessarily specifically mentioning Buy Nothing, but my own experience with using the service and looking at their website, there's certainly reminders to avail yourself of other options first before putting things out for disposal through Verge Valet. But yep, always happy to support Buy Nothing groups and promotion of them because I think they go a long way to reducing the amount of waste that needs to be recycled.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this amendment? I wish to speak to the amendment. I'm very supportive of this amendment as well. As I mentioned at the workshop last week, I'm keen to at least ensure we have some conversations with Good Sammy to see whether they are able to provide appropriate bins that they would monitor and that they would manage at specified locations for small e-goods so that we can have things potentially being recycled in a very timely way. I'm also a huge fan of the Buy Nothing movement as well. What a wonderful idea. So, I mean, I'm well aware of it, but I really do like the idea of us promoting it as well. So that's a great idea. Councillor Wolf.
I did see on the news yesterday that the brewer's yeast in Vegemite is now a pathway forward for breaking down e-waste sustainably and quickly. But until we get that system up and running, I'm definitely supportive of doing what we can in terms of what's been proposed. And my own personal experiences with Buy Nothing have brought really incredible value to my life, particularly since having children where you just go through so much stuff for every stage. And my experiences have been that local people are largely unaware of it when they come to my house and see things and I say, I got this for free on Facebook. They can't believe that we've got this network. So any further promotion that we can do will only benefit the network, the environment and the community.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zaman. Also just noting the wonderfulness that Buy Nothing brings into our lives. And particularly just to note that the excuse that it gives people to knock on doors and meet their neighbours is actually not to be understated. So I think not only is it a waste reduction strategy, but also I've met people on the same street saying, I live on this street, if you can pick it up this afternoon, it'd be great for it to go to someone close by, and you meet you and next they turn out they literally live next door to you and you had no idea. So I think that's another thing to commend, promoting the Buy Nothing network, because it gives people a reason to connect with their neighbours.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak to this? Okay, Councillor Hallett.
Thank you. And just in note to admin's comment, thank you for providing the detail from the website. I guess for me, the main word in the motion, in the amendment is more actively promote, and that it's a kind of active promotion through social media and other avenues, not just on the Verge Valet website where people will go when they're intending to do it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? Okay, that's passed unanimously. Oh, sorry. I beg your pardon, Councillor Castle. Did I miss something?
No, I would like to move an amendment if we're up to that.
So I just want to say you're all putting your so that amendment was passed unanimously. Thank you. Councillor
Sorry.
Castle, you have
I
another
was too
amendment.
quick. Yes, we did discuss this at the briefing last week. I would like to suggest an amendment to motion 4.2 to add the words and brings a report back to council with a recommendation for a permanent solution no later than March 2025. If I can get a seconder.
Okay, so are we just typing that up now? And that's seconded Councillor Hallett. Councillor
Are you okay with those words, Wendy? Do you need them? Did you get that all? Do you want me to say it again? Okay, so the words at the end of motion 4.2 say, and brings a report back to council with a recommendation for a permanent solution no later than March 2025.
So administration, do you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Mayor. More than comfortable with that amendment. I would be hoping that we have some form of permanent solution by then too.
Okay, so Councillor Hallett, did you second that? Okay, you did. Okay, so does anyone wish to speak to this amendment? Or actually, Councillor Castle, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Not in any detail. We talked about it last week. I think that this has been an issue on this section of the Verge for some time, and I think it's important we have a plan to move towards a permanent solution.
Councillor Hallett, do you wish to speak? Does anyone else wish to speak to this amendment? Okay, all those in favour? Okay, carried unanimously. Okay, are there any other comments that anyone wishes to make to any of the matters on this agenda item? Okay, I wanted to say something. Actually, I did want to comment about the suggestion of including within the code of conduct timeframes for councillors to respond. Realise I'm probably opening up a hornet's nest on this one. I just want to say that I agree with the sentiment that people are entitled to expect that they're going to get timely responses from council if issues are raised. The concerns that I do have concerns about trying to enshrine set timeframes within elected representatives, within the code of conduct for elected representatives. My principal concern is that, frankly, I don't think that elected representatives should have to be bound to respond to people who are abusive or aggressive and who may actually want to use the fact that there is a requirement within a code of conduct to bring vexatious complaints because their disgraceful, abusive email has not been responded to. Since I've been mayor, I have said this before, I've received no death threats, I've received no rape threats, that's great, tick. But I have received 2 particularly intemperate emails, and in both instances I responded and basically told those people what I thought about the issues that they were raising with me and the way they choosing to speak to me, and also made it clear to them that if they ever sent me another email with a similar tone or lack of respect, that they would expect that I was going to simply bin it. And that is a position that I am entitled to take because I am the mayor. I'm not the Vincent punching bag. And if people want to raise their concerns with me in a civil way, I will absolutely listen and I will absolutely attempt to see if their concerns can be addressed. But the minute you start prescribing set timeframes within things like code of conduct, you potentially are setting yourself up for a pretty miserable time. So I have a lot of sympathy for the suggestion that our residents and ratepayers are entitled to get a response in a timely way. But I also believe that elected representatives get to make a decision about whether they want to engage with certain matters. And if people don't like a lack of response, or if they don't like your response and the fact that you've actually taken it back to them, they don't have to vote for you. That's what they get. So I did want to make those comments. And I recognise that I'm sure I'm going to get some pleasant emails in response to that, whatever. So there you go. Does anyone else have any other comments they wish to make? Councillor Alexander.
Look, I think most councillors would be supportive of that because I like to think councillors are mature enough to know when to respond. Often you move it on to David to have the administration do that. You like to hear back what happens, but well, and for the record, I guess we do have some very strange people living in our district occasionally, and you get some very strange requests. And so to have that put down that you have to respond in a particular time, I think is a bit childish, and people can decide when they reply and how they reply and what they say when they do reply. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anyone else wish to make any comments in relation to any of the items arising out of the AGM? Okay. Can we note the proposals? All those, actually, I'm just thinking, Councillor Hallett, do you need to respond further? Okay. All those in favour? Okay, we note that unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to 11.4, mid-year budget review, and I note that an absolute majority decision is required. Okay, so can I have a mover for the mid-year budget review? Councillors, I can't move it. Oh, look, we've been joined by, there we go. Hello there, CFO. Hello. So would anyone like to move this? Thank you. Moved Councillor Greer. Seconded Councillor Wolf. Thank you. Councillor Greer, is there anything that you wish to raise or speak to on this?
No, thank you.
Councillor Wolf? Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments around this matter? Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to say I'm supportive of the approach that's been taken here, that it's a fairly balanced approach in dealing with the mid-year budget review to reduce some debt and to redistribute. So thank you for the hard work of the team.
Okay, does any other councillors have anything else to say? Okay, so Councillor Greer, do you wish to say anything further?
No.
Okay, I will put this there with an absolute majority required. All those in favour? Okay, so that's passed, noting that councillor Wallace is temporarily absent from the chamber. So, but an absolute majority has been achieved. Okay, so now we move to 12.5, information bulletin, and I'm trying to remember. Had that. Okay, do we have someone to move this particular, moved councillor Wolf? Do we have a seconder? Seconded councillor Warner. Okay, councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep it brief. I just wanted to make a short comment around Nature Play WA and the Nature Play in the Park program that was referenced in the bulletin. I was really pleased to hear at the briefing session that we had last week that there are future plans to engage Nature Play in a future program. I did hear from a number of families that were really, really keen to participate in the program that we had, but didn't quite make it onto the list. And I did hear from a nanny, actually, of one of the kids who did participate, to say that the feedback all around had been absolutely outstanding, that the program was top notch. And that the program is really evidence-based in terms of the social, physical, social and other, emotional and other developmental benefits that children who participate in that program do take from it. So yeah, really pleased to hear that and encourage future participation. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Warner doesn't wish to speak. Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Okay, so in that case, I'll put this proposal. All those in favour? Okay, passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Noting again, councillor Wallace is currently absent. Returning. Right. Okay, so now we get to the final item that's on the agenda. And that's 13.1, notice of motion by myself, Mayor Alison Xamon, protection and promotion of trees on private land. As the presiding member, I don't usually get the opportunity to move motions, so I'd like to take the opportunity now to move a notice of motion. I'd like to move item 13.1, notice of motion, Mayor Alison Xamon, protection and promotion of trees on private land. Is there a seconder? That's seconded by councillor Castle. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much for being prepared to enable me to put this motion. What we do know is that we have got a bit of a crisis when it comes to the issue of tree canopy here in Vincent. We've already got one of the lowest levels of tree canopy in Australia and in capital cities. And so that was already a big risk and a big concern in terms of the need to get more. But obviously, Polyphagus shot hole borer has been an absolutely gutting development for us as a council to have to deal with. And I know that for, I would say, all of the councillors here, the loss of significant trees is really having an impact. It is impacting on people's, on what's happening in people's personal lives, but also generally the concern for the community. This means that now more than ever, we have to take whatever measures we can to try to ensure that we are maintaining as much tree canopy as we can. But the reality is that 80% of the tree canopy that we lose actually occurs on private land. Now, I know that here within Western Australia, there seems to be a particular approach to trees in private land, which isn't necessarily replicated in other parts of Australia, where the need to preserve trees on private land perhaps is better understood and better accepted by the community as a whole. There have been a number of mechanisms that have been proposed in the past to look at ways that we can maintain tree canopy, but unfortunately, it's clearly not having the desired effect. So one of the things that I'm keen to do is to make sure that we as a council are doing everything we can to advocate as strongly as we can, particularly at a state government level, to ensure that any and all planning protections are going to be applied to enable planners here in Vincent to effectively require people to keep significant trees when developments are proceeding. So we are coming under pressure to provide infill housing, which I support, but that means that we need to be quite smart about the trees that are currently existing on private property and doing whatever we can to ensure designs that will enable us to keep as many of them as possible. I think particularly of mature trees that are on boundary lines. When developers come in at the moment and just clear out entire blocks, it has a devastating effect for people who are living there already in terms of privacy, amenity, the cooling effect, biodiversity, all the things. And we know that having sufficient tree canopy is about livable cities. We know that it's about doing something towards mitigation of the effects of climate change. The reasons why we need trees are well substantiated, and I shouldn't have to go into the why. But the how is the key here. So there are many mechanisms which can be looked at, and I think that we need to make a decision as a council as to what sort of appetite we have to go as far as we can and as strongly as we can in terms of investigating potential planning models that we would potentially be prepared to look at defending in the SAT if we needed to. So what the purpose of this is for us to basically give permission to administration to spend time and energy going and exploring whatever legal and planning mechanisms, whatever levers are potentially possible to bring back to us for consideration so that we can see if we can employ any measures to be able to ensure that we are maximising our tree canopy. We know we've got all the levers in terms of the land that we have responsibility for, the parks, the verges, those sorts of things, but we really do need to look at how our measures to ensure that we're maintaining tree canopy can be exercised effectively and decisively on private land, particularly as we're looking to increase infill and we are looking to have more and more developments within Vincent. So that's effectively what we're trying to achieve here. It's deliberately broad, and it's deliberately broad because we actually don't want to be too prescriptive at this point as to the sort of measures that we could potentially pursue. So I urge you to consider supporting this motion. Thank you. Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for bringing this notice of motion forward. I think it is really important. I don't think I'm not aware of much dissension on council on this issue either, but I do think it's important that we actually have some impetus to move forward. I am very keen to explore whatever options are available to us in planning controls, and I thank the administration for providing the information in the briefing notes about what has been tried and what is in operation in other local governments. And I'm looking forward to an opportunity to discuss that in more detail when we have a workshop discussion about this. What I think I would also like to see in that discussion is the flip side of that, which is the incentive approach. So we know we have limitations on planning controls. We have to work within a fairly prescriptive framework. And there's lots of pressures from all sides on that. And that will still need to be done. But the other side of that is to try and make it attractive for people to retain their trees through incentives. I wondered if there's an opportunity to consider a model like the Green Track program that we've just introduced. So that might be something to explore. I'm also interested in understanding if other jurisdictions have had successful incentive models, obviously understanding they have different frameworks to us, but Are there measures that actually work in communities to encourage people to keep their trees? And I suppose then the big challenge is how do we make sure that this is all understood before the trees are even removed? That's part of the challenge that we have right now, is we don't get to be involved until the damage is done. So yeah, I'm really interested in how we can be creative with this, as well as exploring some of the options that are already being tried in WA and in other jurisdictions. So I'm really keen to have this discussion. Thank you for the motion. Looking forward to being able to lead in this space, as always.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Alexander.
Look, I think in anything like this, the devil's in the detail. And so point 2 there, for example, requests that the city prioritises the progress of planning controls. Well, prioritises to what degree? What is the regulation going to say? All of those sorts of things we need to see. And as you mentioned before, this is a broad request to come back with what the options are. So what we get back will be, interesting to see, because, I suggest everyone wants to protect trees and have trees. Some people will buy a piece of land to develop, or had a piece of land for 40 years that they want to develop. Are they going to be disadvantaged by new laws coming in and regulations? And so, as I said, the devil's in the detail. So, I'm not opposed to looking at what options there are, but I'm concerned about what necessarily comes back.
Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. I certainly support this motion. It definitely feels like the community that we represent is really crying out for some action in this space, because it's not only about our amenity, but this is really about securing our future and our children's future. I agree with the comments around the fact that, we really need to embrace a future within Vincent that accommodates increasing population density and increasing our tree canopy. It can't be one or the other. And this is where I'd really appreciate some further discussion around incentives as well. I would also like to acknowledge the inclusion of strategies in the briefing notes being undertaken by other jurisdictions. I think that's always really helpful context when we look at a really complex policy issue like this. And who knows, we might even find some creative or inventive examples from other countries, as well as other Australian jurisdictions that we might want to consider here. And I'll just end with one comment, which is that I'm really hopeful that we'll see updated tree canopy mapping data from DPLH, because I think it's really impossible for us to move forward without having an actual understanding about where we're at and how that differs from 4+ years ago, I think, when we last got the data. So I think that's absolutely crucial for us and for all other LGs to move forward.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak to this proposal? So just in response to some of the comments that were made, I completely agree with all the comments that have been made, actually, that I think that it is going to be about the detail of what's actually being presented, because one of the things I am conscious of as well is I don't want to see perverse outcomes where people actually rush to get rid of trees, for example, because they're before anything comes through. That would be the sort of thing that we don't want to see. And so incentives are really key to this, I think, as well. How do you really encourage people to keep healthy, mature trees? And I also think it is really important that we interrogate and I think basically challenge the idea that density and retention of trees are mutually exclusive. It's just not true. And this is all about smart planning, about smart design, about recognising that if you are getting a place that has a beautiful big tree, frankly, it's going to increase the value of your property. That is just a fact. I know one of the reasons that I bought my place in Highgate was because it's got so many big trees that hopefully won't get taken by the borer. But that was actually an incentive to want to purchase that. Thank you very much for speaking on this proposal. I'm going to now put the proposal for consideration. So all those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Vincent loves trees. Okay, so that comes to the end of our agenda. I don't have any confidential items on the agenda. So there being no further business to conduct, I thank all those in attendance on the live stream and close the meeting at 8:08. Thanks. You can turn off the